After the last tour you did in Britain, you got some very peculiar critics.
I don't know, I only saw one. I saw the one in Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
That's all. And I mean, the only critics I take any notice of are the audience, man. And every night we have to go back there and play them another song, you know. I mean, people, you know, who are critics, man? You know, why are they doing it for? What does a critic write for? You know, he does it for money.
Okay.
You know. I mean, people. The only people you can take any notice of, the only judge of your music, is yourself and the audience. You know. If they dig it, it's enough for me, you know.
Yeah. But this is not. I didn't mean bad critics. No, I mean very strange.
Peculiar.
Yeah. Like if you were, are the Stones beginning to become kind of a myth? You think?
Well, I mean.
But
I misunderstood you first. Yeah, to critics, I can understand that. That's a time, I think, mainly because we haven't played in England since God knows when. The last tour we did in England was late '66. You know. I mean, in rock and roll, that's a long time, and you know, people are made and break in that time, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is it. Yeah. So to them, it makes it very strange because suddenly they've got to write about somebody who they know has been around and they know is, you know, but who they haven't seen for a long, long time. You know, it makes it strange. I think.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, I think also. I'm thinking a bit about the press conference in Vedbeck, if you remember that.
Vedbeck?
Yeah, outside Copenhagen.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the journalists behave with a big, strange, peculiar respect. You know, like
the critics have done after your
I know, it's that, you know, it's so dumb of those people, you know. I mean, if they can't talk to you person to person, then they shouldn't be a critic, you know, because then they've got a distorted view of you. You know, I mean, if they come with the feeling that you're just a piece of shit, or they come with the feeling that you're God, they've got a distorted view of you. You know, because you're only a musician, and all you've come to do is play to them. You know, okay, so you're a famous musician in a famous band, but I mean, a critic should be able to handle that and cut through that. Okay. You know, if he can't, then he's probably not a good critic. That's all. You know.
Probably.
I mean, there's an awful lot of bad critics everywhere.
Well, let's talk about the new album. It's very rocky. I think it's the most rock and roll album you made.
A lot of rock and roll. Yeah.
More than the last, let's say, 3 or 4 albums. It's very strange that you seem to have.
It seems to go more simpler in a way, you know.
More simpler because I think we've had some more influences for the first time working with us. We've always before worked just the 5 of us, you know, and now we found Bobby and Jim Price, you know. Nicky we've always worked with anyway, Nicky Hopkins, who's on, and there's a lot of piano players on that album, a lot of different piano players on that album. But Nicky's going to be with us for the next year or so, playing live with us, and you know, something we haven't done before. It's turned us on a lot, you know. I mean, Bobby Keys, man, he used to play with Buddy Holly, you know, and he's exactly the same age as I am. And when I say exactly, I mean exactly the same day, the same month, the same year, which makes it very strange. You know?
And you've got the same musical experiences too.
We do exactly the same thing, you know, exactly the same. If I put a record on, Bobby goes, man, you know, that's it, you know. And so it's great, you know, because he's a Texan, you know, and I mean, it's his music, it's American music, you know. I mean, it took English 10 years to sort of learn the basics of it, you know. And I think another few years, and I don't know about the Latin countries, and I just don't think it's in their blood to rock, you know. Not in that way, although they get it on in a different way. You know?
It's more polyrhythmic.
It's more, and it's more sort of emotional, sort of theatrical. You know, it's a different thing.
That's what we were talking about the other day. That the French, for instance, overdo everything.
The Southern French, they overdo
music,
that. You know, for us, it's sort of sickly, nostalgic, sentimental, but for them, it's sort of all it's soul for them. You know. I mean, which is cool. You just have to get used to it. You know?
This is why they dig Eddie Cochran in France, but not Chuck Berry so much, perhaps.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
Thinking about this, but it isn't any conscious trend that you're going to say, oh, this record we make it simpler. It's just happening.
It just happens that way, you know. I mean, you learn to play, you keep on learning to play. to play what we want to play, I mean, we're constantly simplifying it anyway, you know, because the music that we play, the cats that originally played that, they played very simple, and the notes are simpler, the rhythms are more complicated. You know, there's a lot of the rhythm. The rhythm's an important thing in rock and roll. You know, I mean, you can take it as far back as you want. You can take it back to Africa, you know. And
very important to not to say too many things at the same time. I mean, be simple.
Yeah, because you have to make a point, you know, and you can only make a point if you say it straight out and simple, you know. And there's no point in beating around the bush. And you know, that's why that whole Dylan thing. You know, I mean, I love him. Used to, but I mean, I can't. I just find that I don't listen to his records now, you know, because there's so many words and images coming up all the time that it just, you know, it's just you just want to run away now. You know, then it was great because you have to go. You have to go through those things, you know.
Then it's good to put on a Chuck Berry record again.
Right, you know, 9 years old and as sweet as she can be.
Yeah, this is the first album that Mick Taylor actually showed on.
Yeah, he was only on, like, I think 2 tracks on Let It Bleed. You know? But he was on all of Yaya's, obviously. But, you know, that's, I mean, live thing.
Yeah, because this is, I mean, I've experienced some press conferences with the Stones, and everybody keeps asking, how does it feel to succeed Brian Jones?
It's very difficult for him to answer. How can he answer it?
Especially
I tell you, he hasn't succeeded Brian Jones, but I tell you who has Bobby Keys. Bobby Keys is a reincarnation of Brian Jones. So, yeah, it's very strange for us because he has these mannerisms, you know, just things that he does, things that he says, and the way he is, you know, sometimes.
This is why you call him number one, isn't it?
Well, yeah, well, you know, because he's very much like Brian. It's like having Brian back in the band again, you know. It's a strange thing, you know.
Yeah.
But then the Stones are a strange band.
In what way? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, any band that's been together for that long, is like a very tight unit, and there are a lot of, you know, everybody knows everybody inside out, you know.
And you really do, because you get the impression that the reason for you being able to keep together for such a long time and keeping a kind of straight line in your music is because you stay away from each other.
Well, that's because we know each other so well that we know not to stand on each other's head all the time, you know. Because that's why we had to stop working for 2-3 years, you know, apart from all that drug scene, getting busted and all that, which really, you know, putting us in jail and all that was a drag, you know, and that stopped us for a year. But I mean, also because we'd been living in each other's pockets for 5 years, you know, and I just didn't want to see those people. I didn't want to see Bill Wyman's face no more, you know what I mean? For a bit, you know. I mean, I love the cat, you know, but I just want to stop for a while, you know, and think about it, you know.
You didn't mean strange band in any other context, then?
Well, I mean, how strange you want to get?
Oh, I'm asking you.
Yeah, well, I mean...
well, it's a weird... I mean, I think people look upon the Stones as a very weird band.
Well, they always have, and I think they're probably right, you know, but I mean, to sort of explain weird...
No,
say,
I mean,
you know,
this isn't an image, but it is the group. I mean, because I mean, this is.
I think we have to. No, there's nothing you can say about it except we're weird.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, let's talk about Mick Taylor for a while anyway, because it's somebody said Friday, this ludicrous Friday night, that he was working on an album of his own.
Well, everybody's supposed to be working on an album of their own because it's part of the thing. But I mean, nobody's particularly into it. You know, I mean, everybody's got things they want to do by themselves. I mean, I've got about 50 songs I've written over the years, which I've tried with the Stones. Yeah. And Mick and I have tried with the Stones this way, that way, upside down, turn it round. It just doesn't happen. Every time it just doesn't happen. So obviously it means that it's too personal to lay on other people, and it's a song that you've got to do yourself. Everybody's got those things. If he's got enough to do by himself, then he should do it, you know. I mean, I think Bill's doing an album by himself because he does a lot of things which the Stones are not interested in doing, but which he is, you know. I've got things which I would like the Stones to do, but they never seem to get together, so maybe I'll do one too, you know. I'm not particularly that interested in doing it, you know, really. just if it throws itself together, I'll put it out. You know?
What kind of things would that be?
I don't know. It could be. I mean, if I make an album, it'll be on one of those little cassette things, you know. I mean, because that's the way I do it, you know. And I just take it in the studio and put it on tape, you know. That's the way I did Street Fighting Man, you know. That's the way I did Jumpin' Jack Flash. It was all recorded on one of those little cassette recorders, you know. And just add a few things later, you know.
This is why that sounds so sharp, probably.
You know, because the problem you've got now with rock and roll, and like, as you say, keeping things simple, is that in the last few years, the technical thing has gone ahead so fast that things are a little clean. You know, everything's when you record it, it's all perfect. You know, it's like a Mozart or something. You know, and I mean that's not the way rock and roll's put together. So you find yourself with all these clean tapes trying to dirty them up all the time. You know, trying to stomp on them and rip them up, and you know, and so I'm interested in getting hold of like old equipment and stuff like that because I think, you know, for some things anyway, not for everything. I mean, obviously, 16 tracks are very handy sometimes, you know. But also, there are other times when 2 are enough, you know.
Yeah, I think this is what's happening with American pop right now.
Yeah, everybody thinks because you've got 16 tracks, you've got to use all 16 tracks, you know, and it's just not true, you know.
Yeah, and this is also, I mean, like Crosby, Stills and Nash sounds so very, very clean.
Yeah, that's clean music, though. I mean, it's been scrubbed and it's been put through the shower and the bath, you know.
Yes, and it's exactly the same thing when you use all your friends, all your musician friends, and you know, just for some strange reason.
Yeah, well, there's something interesting there. There's a danger that rock and roll, like jazz, will become very introvert, you know.
No, rock and roll just, I mean, it depends what you want to call rock and roll. I mean, I don't call.
Well, let's say rock music then.
I mean, if you can go through this, I mean, I don't call rock and roll Cat Stevens or I don't call the Fifth Dimension rock and roll. I don't, you know, or James Taylor rock and roll. You know, I mean, that's, you know, there's a difference between pop music and rock and roll. You know, I mean, but names don't really make any difference. You know, it's just when something comes on and you hear it, you say, "Well, baby, that rocks." You know, and that's it. You know, that's really. After all these years, I found out that's all I'm really good at, and that's all I really want to do. You know, I mean, I obviously there are times when I like to slow things down and do other things. You know, but I mean, they're all connected with rock and roll. They're still simple, and they're still, you know, I hope funky. You know, Mozart's 40th Symphony. Yeah.
What rocks in here? Not Mozart, I expect. Not Cat Stevens, but what?
Who knows? This is the top 30 in England right now. Yeah. I haven't, you know, I really am not into it. I don't know half these people.
I don't know if anybody really cares anymore.
Well, I don't think anybody cares about that, you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, people obviously care about music because it's bigger than ever, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, this is...
But that is another scene, you know.
But what do you think make people go for a band like Deep Purple, which I think is a very dishonest band?
It is. It's what makes people go for Deep Purple is, for a start, that there was nobody else around at the time that they started, and there's a lot of reasons. Because they were pushed, because they get played on the radio. You know, even now, in England, you don't. If they've got a few spare minutes, they don't play a Rolling Stones record. They're still basically, Rolling Stones, and that just because it's in their heads, and that because they're scared, you know. People think because the Rolling Stones have been going 10 years, they're now respectable, you know. Yeah. But people are still dead scared of us, man, you know. And so if they've got a few minutes to play a record that they want, they won't put one of ours on. I found out the hard way.
When I spoke to Mick in I think that was mid-August in London, I asked him about how you go about when you do your music, but he couldn't really give me any sort of answer. It's
very difficult, I know. I mean, I doubt whether I can either, because what can you do? I sit around with a guitar, and I sit around with a piano, and I fool around with a few words, you know. and I just let it happen. You know, I mean, it isn't anything to do with me.
No.
You know, it comes out of there. You know, and it just comes. I'm just a medium. You know,
and you doesn't have to struggle very hard for a song.
No, I wouldn't dare struggle. It bores me to tears to struggle. You know, I'd rather come out in the sun and get a tan than struggle with music. You know, you can't fight it. You just got to let it come. You know, it's not one of those things that you dare. If it becomes work, you know, I mean, I've never thought of it as work, you know. I mean, maybe on the last week of an American tour, I say, well, I'm working, you know. But really, it's not work to me, you know. It's just what I do, you know. And it's fun most of the time, you know. The work of it is dealing with the people, you know, and what you're going to do with, and how much you're going to make, and I don't want to do, you know, I don't want to charge people this much money to come and see us, you know, but you're worth this much and all that rubbish, you know. That's the work of it, you know. And people don't see that or know about that, you know.
They just see the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also been some talking about you doing an album together with Howling Wolf, or it should have been done.
Well, there's one been done with Howling Wolf. It was in London. There are some good things on there. Bill and Charlie on it. I didn't do it, actually. Mick Taylor was on a few. Eric Clapton was on it. And Bill and Charlie were the rhythm section. Yeah. And it's good, no, but I mean, Howling Wolf is a very old man now, you know. There's also talk of us doing one with John Lee Hooker up in Montreux, which I think might happen, you know.
He's just done one with Canned Heat.
Yeah, I know, yeah. It might happen, I don't know. I'm going to listen to the Canned Heat thing and that, because, I mean, sometimes I think, well, I mean, that sounds like a real sort of, you know, John Lee Hooker with the Rolling Stones, you know. I mean, it could be great, or it could just be sort of a drag, you know. Exactly. And so I want to listen to I haven't heard what John Lee Hooker's been doing lately, and I haven't heard that Canned Heat thing that he did. So I listen to that and decide whether I need the gig.
I think people, when they think of the Stones, they think very much of Mick. He's always talking, and he's. I mean, when something is, I mean, there's always a PR man in the group.
I mean, if you've got 5 people, you know, there's always going to be one that the others are going to say, okay, you do it, because I just can't be bothered, you know. Yeah. And I mean, it's very easy if somebody likes to talk to let them talk, you know, and just. You know, go off somewhere and get stoned, you know, while he's doing it. You know.
But if one sees the group on stage, perform on stage, it looks like Keith Richards is the man who drives them on all the time. I mean, you're running about and screaming to Charlie and pushing them forward. That's the way it looks.
Well, it's my band, man, you know. I mean, Mick and I get it together, but when it's on stage, Mick has got to concentrate on what he's doing. And it's my band, and I've got to keep everything in shape, that's all, you know. I mean, that's just personality things, you know, who's strongest enough to do it, you know, and who's been there long enough to know what's going to happen, and how. I mean, it's my songs, so I know when this should happen, you know. And if I scream at Charlie, it's because he's being goddamn lazy, you know.
That happens,
But I tell you, when Charlie's got a good night, the Stones have got a bitch of a night, you know.
Yeah, this is. You can hear that on the live album from the American tour.
Yeah, and on that tape that Bobby just played, you know, that was a good night for Charlie, you know. And if he's got a good night, everybody's got a good night, you know.
I think also people underrate Bill Wyman and Charlie Watts in the group. Bill, he's standing on the side of the stage and it really doesn't look like he belongs in the group.
You see, people try to cut groups up, you know. I mean, first of all, they want to put groups... First of all, they want groups, and then they try and cut them up and say, well, this bass player and that drummer, you know... A bass player and a drummer have got to be like that, man. You know, they've got to be really together. And there ain't many bass players and drummers that are more together than those two. No. You know exactly when a bass drum beat's going to come and when the bass note's going to hit, you know?
I think I'm thinking particularly on one number on the Leon Russell album, where you can hear it so clearly. This is Roll Away the Stone, I think. Yeah.
He's I mean, sometimes I listen, like, we've been listening to that new album because I've been checking out the pressings and whether... It should be, you know, the master and whether it's cut properly and that. And suddenly I had to leap up to the phone and tell Bill that he was a shit-hot bass player, man. Just, you know, just had to do it, you know. And he's really the most modest cat. Him and Charlie, you know.
Yeah. Are you going to do any more tours this year?
We're going to Japan for the first time, I think, in the summer sometime.
This is the first time ever?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Singapore is the nearest we've got to Japan before. I don't know what the hell it's like to play that. I spoke to John Mayall about it, or what somebody did, and he said they were great and they were really into it. You know, I can't imagine Japanese rocking, but apparently they do and they dig it. You know, and also on top of that, you know, as far as records are concerned, they buy a lot and they like the Stones for a long time. You know, so we ought to go there and see what it's all about. And then we're going to America and Canada in the fall, but I hope not on one of those sort of big sort of auditorium Madison Square Gardens, or at least not all like that, you know. I would dearly love to sort of do a show in Memphis in the auditorium and then just drive 50 miles to some honky-tonk, and Ricky and the Red Streaks are playing tonight, and just play there and you know, without anybody knowing who the hell the house band is, you know, and record it just for the hell of it, you know, because I think there's lots of things you can do in America, and there's no reason why it should all be Madison Square Gardens and Los Angeles Forum and 20,000 people a show and all that, you know. I mean, it's a gas to do that too, but it would be a gas to play in some old shack in America too, you know. You know, it really would. And also in America, you know, the most capitalist country in the world, I don't see why the kids have to pay for it. At least not all of it. I don't see why Coca-Cola can't pay for some of it. You know what I mean? And things like, because I mean, there's lots of different ways to do things, you know. And I really hate to sort of, especially in America, you know. I mean, why not, man? I mean, they're the people with the money, General Motors and all those people, you know. So maybe you know, but we'll be going there one way or another. Wouldn't
imagine General Electric to pay the Rolling Stones. Sounds a little bit strange.
Sponsorship, you'd be surprised, man. You know, to have their name up on every night. You know, it depends. You know, it's worth a try. You know, we've got nothing to lose. We can always go there the same old way again. You know? It's just that we don't particularly want to. You know.
Do you feel it has gone? I mean, it's a big circus. You got 50 people along and trucks and. Is it too big?
It's a big scene. I want to cut down on the number of people we carry along with us. You know, I mean, last time we carried the whole stage and the lights and everything. You know, I would like to cut down on it. But there again, those auditoriums are so goddamn ugly, man, that unless you carry something with you to sort of make it look good, you know, it's just like playing in a hockey ring or a football, you know, and I mean, it just feels terrible and looks terrible, you know. I mean, rock and roll isn't just music, it's rather theatrical too, you know. And we're rather more theatrical than most, you know. So, and I dig it, you know, and...
well, one can tell, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we all do. I mean, you know, you think Chuck Berry didn't do it? You think Little Richard? You know, it's what it's about, man. You know, because that's the way you get the rock into the roll, man. It's a funny word, rock and roll, but it's the only way to say it.
Anything more? We want to
I've sort of got to get together in a minute. If you've got enough.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
If not, we will try to talk
Come back
about
some.
some.
Call me up on the phone. Or